When you think about the global oncology market, we're talking about trillions of dollars. But more than that, every single decision can have a real impact on a patient's life. So making the right call and making it fast is absolutely everything. But what happens when the data that's supposed to be your guide is actually the thing slowing you down? And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures the problem a major pharmaceutical company was up against. They just launched a whole portfolio of new oncology products, which is a huge deal, right? But that success created this massive data headache. The information was so chaotic, it was actually causing delays. And in their world, a delay isn't just lost money. It means insight and maybe even patients are at risk. All right, so let's get into what was really going on here. This company was working in a bunch of different countries, and each country's team had its own way of doing things. This created these information silos. So the data on how their products were performing was scattered all over the place, it wasn't consistent, and it was taking forever to get to global headquarters. They were basically flying blind. So to break it down, they had a few core challenges. First off, the most important data, like sales numbers, was coming in all different ways from different places. On top of that, really valuable information about what had already happened wasn't being pulled together properly. And maybe the biggest problem of all, there was just no way to compare how one country was doing against another. They were missing huge opportunities to spot problems before they got too big.
To really get this, think about it like driving a car. Your lead KPIs, that's like looking through the windshield. It tells you what's happening right now and where you're headed. Your lag KPIs, that's your rearview mirror. It tells you where you've been. Now, you need both to drive safely, right? Well, this company was struggling to get a clear view out of either window, let alone combine the two to actually steer their strategy.
So the problem was pretty clear. They needed a fix, and fast. That's when they brought in a consulting firm, DelveInsight, to help them forge a path from all those data silos to some real, actual synergy. The mission was simple, but not easy. Create order out of all that chaos and build one single source of truth. And this right here, this was the goal. The whole idea was to move away from dozens of separate, confusing reports and get to one clear, single pane of glass. A single dashboard where anybody, from a manager on the ground to an executive at HQ, could see the whole picture, instantly. So how'd they pull it off? Well, DelveInsight came in with a really structured four-step plan. First, they systematically started tracking all the important performance indicators. Then, they worked with all the local teams to centralize that data into one place. Step 3, and this one is so important, they ran a ton of sanity checks to make sure the data was clean and reliable. And finally, step 4, they built the tool, a web-based interactive dashboard to see it all. Okay, so the tool is built. Now the focus changes. It's not just about cleaning up data anymore. It's about actually using it to make decisions. And this is where the real magic happens. This is where a tedious data project turns into a real proactive strategic weapon. And the results? They were huge. It really all came down to these 3 things. First, they finally had clarity where there used to be total confusion. Second, they could now make direct comparisons between different markets, which was impossible before. And when you put those 2 together, what do you get? A massive competitive advantage. So what could they actually do now that they couldn't do before? Well, they had this amazing dashboard with monthly summaries for the execs. The local teams got feedback way faster, so they could jump on issues right away. And for the first time, global leadership could clearly see which brands and markets were crushing it and which ones were struggling. That meant they could finally move resources around and make much, much smarter choices. And one of the coolest things to come out of all this was a custom tool they called the Evolution Index. This was a unique metric they built to basically give every single country a performance score. So leadership could look at one number and instantly see who the high flyers were, and, just as important, which regions needed a little more help. It totally took the guesswork out of their global strategy. This whole story is about more than just one company, or even the pharma industry. It really holds a lesson for pretty much any business out there trying to deal with all the data we have today. It's about how you turn all that noise into a clear signal, into a real advantage. And that's really the big takeaway here. Look, anybody can collect data. Storing it is basically free these days. But none of that matters if you can't use it. The real value, the real game changer, is turning that raw, messy information into a sharp, powerful tool that helps you make better decisions faster. And just so you know, the team that led this whole transformation was DelveInsight. They're a consulting firm that specializes in taking on exactly these kinds of messy healthcare data challenges and turning them into clear, actionable intelligence. So that brings us to the final thought. And it's really a question for you. Think about your own work, your own company. Take a hard look at the data and the reports you use every day. Are they helping you drive decisions forward? Or are they just creating complexity and delays? Because honestly, the answer to that question could be the difference between leading your market and getting left behind.